Welcome back to another episode of Harmonious at Lunch, the show that fuels your business success. I'm Brandon Gano, your host and guide through the world of harmonious business growth. Today, we're unlocking powerful strategies with industry experts to help your business thrive. If you're a business owner, entrepreneur, or executive, you are in the right place. Join me and our incredible guest today on the journey to clarity, growth, and success. It is time to revolutionize your approach to business. Let's dive in with another episode of Harmonious at Lunch. Welcome back to some more bite-sized business advice here, and we have an awesome episode lined up for today. I have a guest with me. We're going to talk about the two things that probably kill more small businesses than anything else, and that is procrastination and shiny object syndrome. Distractions all over, especially in today's world. And I have with me someone who's authored a million books. It seems like it's not exactly a million, but it's a lot. And he's a master of getting things done and getting them done effectively. So before we dive in, Scott Allan, welcome to the show. Thank you for being here.
Well, thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
Am I on track? I know you told me before we started recording, I said 6 million. It's how many actually books have you published?
It's about 35 to 40. I think we're just over the 40 mark, and the goal is 200. I'd love to get to 1 million, but we'll just have to see how much time's left in this lifetime.
That's fair. Yeah, I mean, the fact that you don't even know specifically tells me all that I need to know, because that's a big number. Like, most people can't even wrap their heads around writing one book, and you've written almost 40 at this point, or over 40. So very cool accomplishment. You are probably the best expert then to talk about how to get over procrastination and shiny object syndrome. So was that your first book, The Art of Getting Things Done?
No, actually it came out a few years ago. So it was like book number at the time, I can't remember, 28 or something like that, or 25. So I had a few before that. And that book actually became a series of books just based on popular demand, I guess. But Do the Hard Things First came out in 2021, just after COVID. And just some insight on that. The reason that I wrote that book is because 2020, which was bad for a lot of people, I didn't do any writing that year. I didn't do any publishing. In fact, I probably unpublished more books than I published. And I decided to write that book on procrastination because that's what I mostly did for that year. And so I thought, I'm going to write a book on this, and just and the shiny object syndrome tied into that as well. So yeah, but yeah, it's just I think it's an important subject, because it's something that a lot of people don't really admit to, or they don't realize it's happening. You know, I'm referring to the procrastination side of things. So, but as a chronic procrastinator, meaning I will put off everything and anything that I can, I try to stay as productive as I can. But there's this side of the business where, like, you know, when it comes to writing and publishing, I can be very productive. And over here, if I have to do, like, you know, banking or anything that has to do with admin and just stuff that has to be done, and I will not do it because it's actually really hard work. So I'll get somebody else to do it. And if I don't do that, then I don't end up getting any of it done. And some of the stuff might be tax related, and that stuff's really important because the government still wants to get paid. So anyway, I learned some lessons from that. But everything that I learned probably the hard way went into, you know, the material that I put together. So.
Yeah, and that's I think true of everybody. We all have whatever we want to call it. It's your zone of genius, getting in flow, whatever it is. We all have that thing that we're really good at and we're really passionate about, and then there's everything else that drains us. Unfortunately, we don't always focus as small business owners and entrepreneurs on the thing that we're really good at. We don't effectively delegate the rest. So we just end up in this state of, I don't know, it's like a state of mush, and and we end up procrastinating. And then that's where the shiny object syndrome comes in. So I do want to apologize. I got the name of your book wrong. We'll put it down below in the show notes. There's a link to Scott's website. It's Do the Hard Things First. So I want to kind of unpack, you know, where did this come from? Because that seems like you definitely dealt with it, right? And over the course of your career and publishing so many books before this one. What are some of the things that you just stumbled upon and then decided to write this book about to get over that hump of procrastination, if you will?
Yeah. So, and just to be clear too, it's something that I still struggle with probably on a daily, if not weekly basis. So it's something that, you know, I don't know if you can classify it as an addiction. but at least I recognize when it shows up, and I'm able to say, okay, there it is again. And then I have to go through the process of, unwinding it all and pushing it out the door so I can get my work done. But here's an interesting thing though, just about the, like how this came about really is because I have, like a lot of people, yes, I procrastinate. And I think people have varying degrees of procrastination. So mine was more like, like I said, I could be very productive when it comes to creating things, but then things that has to do with like filling out forms for the bank, for taxes, whatever it might be, like I would push those things off to the very last minute. And sometimes I didn't get them done at all. And that would have a negative consequence, obviously. Like if you, now I've never been late on paying my taxes or filing, but I've been very close. And the stress of that was so great. Like it almost put me in the hospital a couple of times. Right. And I realized like, and I did it every year. Like every year I would, would think, well, okay, I put it off to the last minute last year, but this year I'm not going to do it. And I would make a promise to myself. And sure enough, March would go by and April and May, and this the end of the year. And then, you have to get these things ready. And I would just be like, no, I'll do it tomorrow. I'll do it next week. And this pattern, is like a pattern of self-sabotage, right? So I basically had to just commit to doing something very like a small action every day that was going to be getting this thing done. So, at the end of the day, whether I was spending 10 minutes on it or at the end of the week, I was spending an hour on it. I had to work on, I'm just going to use like, putting putting your financial records together or your taxes together as an example. But I had to commit to an hour at the end of the day or at the end of the week or at the end of the month and just lock that in. And when I didn't do it, it just became easier the next month to push it off and push it off. And that becomes the pattern, right? Because, that is the I guess it's like a comfort addiction where I'm not going to do it now. There's always going to be a later, but later is always going to arrive sooner than you think. And then, you may think you're going to have time at the end of it. You're like, I'm really going to crush it when I get really close to the deadline, and you don't know what's going to happen. So something could come up and you may not have time to do that thing. And now it's too late. And, I've done that with like things that application forms that if I just taken 20 minutes to fill them out and send them in, I would have gotten a lot of money back from the government, for example. But the thought of actually filling out the form was so stressful, I just didn't do it. It was sitting in my drawer, for example. So just things like that would pile up and pile up. And what happened is that I just got so tired of my own excuses and, seeing this failure again and again and again, that I just decided one day, I'm not doing this anymore. And although I still occasionally do it, I would say like I've reduced it by 80 to 90% by just doing the hard things first. By the way, what that really is about is, yes, overcoming procrastination. But at the core, it's actually about building trust with yourself. Because when you don't show up to do these things, you're actually, you're bailing on a commitment to yourself. You're holding yourself accountable, right? You're failing on your own promise. And that's where, you really feel the emotional pain of that. And it's not something that people can see, you're wearing it inside, right? So that's really what the book is intended to do, is to build that trust with yourself. So
that's really interesting too. And I'm thinking that I am your ideal audience for this one because we're mentioning taxes, right? I've been late on filing my taxes. I've had to file an extension the last 3 years. Yay for me. That cost me even more money than the taxes would have originally. So that sucks. But then also I'm thinking I currently have like 10 items on my calendar that I just put tasks on my calendar that I have yet to get to. So it's this, it's not really urgent. It's not important. There will come a time when it's both urgent and important, but we don't want to let it get to that point because it's just kind of eating away at your confidence within yourself. How much of the flip side of that is using your willpower to do these things? Like I'm sure you have a much better strategy than just like power through it and get it done. But what do you like? Unpack this for me. How can me specifically, the audience, you can listen in too, but how do I file my taxes on time and get these 10 things done that I absolutely do need to get done at this point? What's the strategy for that?
So it's more of it's a strategy, but it's also a mindset shift. So for me, like the reason that I don't do these hard things is because they are not a priority, right? So for example, the taxes, right? Like, okay, let's just say it's January. I don't have to file until, the end of the year, for example. And so, in my mind, it's like, okay, well, that means I've got all year. Great. So I'm not going to, that's not a priority right now. But I've got this other project that I've got to have ready in a few weeks. So that becomes the priority. But the thing is what I realize is like the longer that, the more time that you can put towards a project, whether it's 6 months or 9 months, the longer you will just continue to put it off. So what I had to do in order to, again, just going back to the strategy here is like, I had to commit to, so, and actually this is what I do right now. And it's saved me from last year. We had our taxes done way ahead of time. And this is just why at the end of every month, and this is not a big secret, a lot of business owners probably do this, but I wasn't doing it. And I, almost crashed everything because of it. At the end of the month, I'll take whether it's a Saturday or a Sunday, I'll take like a 2 hour time block, and that's just when I'll put all my stuff together, right? And I just did that at the end of every month. And no matter what, I would show, I'd even put it on my calendar. I'd have alerts show like buzzing on my phone. I did whatever it took to get me to, my desk and my chair and just to do this work. Did I want to do it? Of course not. But I'll tell you, after I just put in that 2 hours, sometimes it was 3 hours at the end of the month, it's like I felt great because now I was in a position of power, like I was empowering myself to, and I knew at the end of the year, I was going to have everything all organized, and I had most of it organized. In fact, even my accountant was surprised. He goes, "Oh, this is a transformation from last year and the other few years when you brought everything into me in a box." So, but that's the thing is like, it's easy to procrastinate on the things that are not really like, pushing you against the wall saying, I've got to, it's not like the test that you have to write tomorrow. So you're cramming in, and I did a lot of that back in the day. I'm sure we all did. Right. But the thing is that behavior carried over into other things that we don't realize years later. Like, I was still doing the same thing, only like you said, like, filing your taxes late. Now you got to pay more money. So, for the average, everybody out there who's listening, it's just a matter of, first of all, defining what your priorities are too. And that's the thing about like, we take procrastination as if, let's just say I've got, I actually have 10 projects on the go. Right. And lately I met with one of my coach, and he said like, why do you have 10 projects on the go? You seem really stressed. You're not getting any of them finished, but you're working on them all. And he goes, what are the priorities? And it always came back to that. And I realized like, the projects that I wasn't working on, I would tell myself, well, I'm procrastinating on that. I'm not getting it done. But it turns out that I didn't actually have to do all of them. So some of them actually I just took them off my list altogether. And I just focused in on 2 or 3 priorities. One of them that I had to get finished because of a deadline. But that's because, once I decided on what the priority was, procrastination actually went away. Now I had my task list of things to do every day towards this one project. And I'm just using project. You can put this towards anything. You can do this for cleaning your house, maybe, or whatever it is that you're putting off. The first thing you want to ask yourself is, how important is this thing? And maybe I'm not the one that needs to do it, right? So, and that's the other thing is like, why do everything? One of my favorite books, actually, it's on my desk. It's Who Not How, by I think it's Dan Sullivan and Benjamin Hardy. Is like, you should always ask yourself like, are you the one that has to do it, or you can just outsource it to somebody? And what I found is that most of the stuff that I didn't want to do, it had to be done. Didn't have to be done by me. So I just find someone else who I could outsource it to, And I think that's always the better option, especially if it's something that you continue putting off. So
Yeah, that's a good tip. And I think the other thing that I picked up on was the title of your book is, about doing the hard things first. I've
mm-hmm.
heard the saying, eat the frog first thing in the morning. I think that's a book too.
Mm-hmm.
What I didn't like about that sort of message was that it's more about doing them like first thing in the day. And that's kind of what I was getting at with willpower, because what I found is when I approached that strategy, I would be drained the rest of the day. Because if it's something that I had to do, like taxes, for example, like I have to go through my finances and submit that stuff to my accountant. They file the taxes, but I have to get them the information. That's a huge drain for me. If I do that first thing in the morning, that day for me, it takes a long time for me to regain my energy. Versus what you said was schedule it at the end of the month on a Saturday or a Sunday, where it's a day where you could then veg out or do whatever you want to do for the rest of the day. Or even if it's at the end of the week, a Friday afternoon, if it's stuff that's not really like super important and you can do it in your less than optimal cognitive time, if you will, that's a really cool strategy that seems way different than the original message that I heard.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I have, so, I've said to people before, yeah, you should do the hard things first, like first thing in the morning. But to be honest with you, like most of the hard things that I do during the day, they're not always first thing in the morning. They might be in the evening, but just give you an example, like actually my writing time is one of those hard things, even though I put out a lot of material. I still struggle sometimes to, like most days, to bring myself to get to the desk and work on the book, but again, if it's a priority, I'm going to find the time. And I usually do that in the afternoon. I do other stuff in the morning that maybe those are not priorities per se. They still have to, the things that they still have to be done. But eventually I will get to those, that one hard thing during the day. And at the end of the day, if I can just check it off on my calendar, say it's done, great, or it might be at the end of the week if it's something that can wait until then. But I think what's important is that you clarify what it is and write it down, and then just blocking in the time for that. I mean, that's not a it's not a new productivity hack, of course, but surprisingly, like whenever I did not get something done, I was, sure enough, I'd look at my calendar and it's not on the calendar, which means that I probably would have just, it's not anywhere then, right? So of course I would never get that thing done. So that was a really difficult thing for me to get used to, was like having a calendar. Again, not a new concept, but I wasn't doing it. Hence, it's just easy not to see those things that need to get done. So
Yeah. And when we fall into this trap of, I love that, by the way, it's about prioritization, not necessarily the time of day. So
mm,
that makes complete sense. Alleviates some stress for me and thinking about that too. But when we do procrastinate, I feel like it's procrastination is the seed that ends up becoming shiny object syndrome, which we touched on. So we have a few minutes left, but unpack that for me. Like, is that what you find why most entrepreneurs are falling for the SOS, the shiny object syndrome, because they've procrastinated and now everything else just looks a million times better than that one thing that they need to do?
mm. Yes, and especially if I'm struggling with something. Let's say, for example, I just bought a new piece of software. I'm trying to figure out how it works, and I can't. And because I can't figure out how it works, I go and I get another software just like it. And I actually did this. I would think I was working with ClickFunnels, wasn't working for me. I went and got another thing. It might have been Kajabi or something. And I got stuck on that. And it's like, well, okay, I thought this was going to be a lot easier. In the video, they made it look easy. So I went and got something else. And I kept going around this circle. And now I had like 5 different pieces of software to build a funnel, when really I just needed one. And I didn't have to be the one to, I didn't actually end up using ClickFunnels. It was another one, but that was just like, I was just desperate to make something work. And I was willing to just grab at anything. And I was grabbing at anything. And eventually I grabbed something that ended up costing me a lot of money that I should not have been, playing with in the first place, and paying someone a lot of money. And it just led into, getting into debt and stuff like that. But that was the thing, is like, I felt desperate at the time. And I think it's a mix of like desperation, but also when things got really difficult, I wanted to relieve that stress by getting something new, kind of like you buy this car, you kind of get a little bit bored with it, and then you see another new shiny car and you start, going after that one. And it's like, it was also boredom as well. Like, I didn't want to work with this tool anymore. And again, people can apply this to anything they want to, but in business especially, and we've seen this with CEOs in the past, where like, they were always like trying new ideas. And before they even tested this new idea, they were off on another new idea and investing money into that. And it really becomes, again, it's a self-defeating behavior. But it's not just, it's not just yourself that you could be impacting. It could be the people working in your company, your family, everybody, right? And again, you're allowed to make mistakes, but you could end up, grabbing at something that's going to end up costing you a lot, that in making a mistake that, you can't reverse. So,
Yeah, no, it's so true. I mean, even our clients, they're running 7, 8-figure businesses. They have tens, dozens of employees.
mhm.
We work in 90-day sprints when we consult with them, and every single time the CEO is 3 weeks in, they're like, I don't know if this is working. I'm like, you have not given it the 90 days. We can't measure 3 weeks of progress. And
Right.
then the next thing wants to come up. So these
Yeah.
are great strategies. And so I put your website on the screen. It's also in the show notes wherever you're listening. ScottAllanPublishing.com. You can go check out all of Scott's books. Grab a couple of them. Don't stop at just one. The more the merrier. figure out how to overcome procrastination, and learn these strategies for yourself and your business, and get your taxes done on time. Okay, don't be like me. Don't be foolish. Don't pay more money. But Scott, thank you for coming. This has been an awesome conversation.
It was amazing. Thanks for having me on the show.
And for those of you listening, after you get Scott's books, after you get all 40 of them, make sure you get all 40. Then come back and make sure you subscribe. Make sure you're following along with this show, Harmonious at Lunch. We love having you as a listener, and let us know what you want more of. This is a fabulous conversation about actually making progress in your business. And we want to make sure that every single day we get you closer to your business goals and help you grow your business. Don't succumb to the trap of procrastination and shiny object syndrome. We'll see you on the next episode of Harmonious at Lunch. Thanks for listening.